The orbit of Gorashtel crackled with static. Even from space, the planet looked hostile. Black clouds swirled like smoke over a landscape riddled with tectonic scars and glowing fault lines. Volcanoes pulsed. Storms twisted in every hemisphere. Gravity fluctuated on the hour. It wasn't a place to visit. It was a place to survive, or die trying. The Galactic Coalition called it the final trial, the crown jewel of the interstellar death world circuit. Competitors from 37 systems had gathered, each claiming their species was born to endure. Cameras hovered over the briefing dome in geosynchronous orbit. Audiences tuned in from 100 worlds. The reigning champion, Warmind Karlax of the Verkai, paced on the elevated platform, flanked by armored banners and heat-forged trophies. His voice boomed, deep and serrated. I bled on Vortex 6. I crushed the fireworms of Dranchel with my fists. I do not survive death worlds, I tame them. Roars from the alien delegation rose like a wave. The Verkai were built for war. Over 9 feet tall, plated in dark dermal armor, with claws that could cleave stone and a temperament to match. Karlax was their pride. Thick with muscle and swagger. A nervous young host stammered into the mic. Thank you, Champion Karlax. We now welcome the human contestant. From the Terran Confederacy. Please welcome. The doors parted. She walked in without a sound. No exosuit. No display armor. Just olive fatigues, dust-streaked boots, and a plain gray duffel slung over one shoulder. She was average height, lean, with cropped black hair and sharp, sunburnt features. Sergeant Major Nora Vance didn't look dangerous. She looked quiet. The room quieted too. Some confused murmuring, a few polite claps. One camera drone zoomed awkwardly on her expressionless face. She's alone? Someone whispered. No weapons? Another murmured. Karlax barked a laugh. Where is her champion's armor? Her honor blades? Has your species sent an observer by mistake? Nora adjusted the strap of her bag. Didn't blink. The host cleared his throat. Sergeant Major Vance, would you like to say a few words before the drop? She stared at the floor for a moment, then met his eyes. I didn't come to talk. 20 minutes later, the drop ships roared into atmosphere. Each contestant had their own pod, launched to random locations across Gorashtel's southern continent. The countdown began. Sensors crackled. Wind screamed. Inside her capsule, Nora sat cross-legged, calm, eyes closed. She wasn't thinking about tactics. She'd planned all that already. She was remembering a desert in Pakistan, the way her skin blistered under 2 suns and her boots melted by day 4. She was remembering a blizzard in the Yukon where 6 soldiers froze and placed 10 feet from shelter. She was remembering pain, not to fear it, but to welcome it like an old routine. Her pod hit the ground with a crunch of shattered rock. The hull hissed open. Heat slapped her face. Sulfur filled her nostrils. Winds pulled sideways. Lightning danced across the horizon without thunder. Nora stepped out. Her boots sank into a mire of slick, red sludge. To her right, jagged stones like fangs. To her left, movement in the trees, something tall, chitinous, and fast. She crouched. Took a slow breath. Then walked into the trees. By nightfall, 4 contestants were dead. One boiled alive in a shifting thermal spring. Another was crushed by a tree that moved. The third succumbed to gravity whiplash. The fourth, a 4-eyed war monk from Pelrix, bled out after a stinger PD punched through his armor. Karlax didn't mourn. He stood atop a cliffside, skin smoking from acid mist, gripping the severed head of a horned predator the size of a hover tank. He roared into the night sky, voice echoing through every media channel. This world bends! Applause thundered across alien networks. Meanwhile, Nora built a water funnel from her tarp and a bone hook. She hadn't spoken a word in 9 hours. She'd climbed a basalt ridge to avoid ground-level toxins. Harvested fungus that passed her biosensor's toxin scan. Smeared her scent with mud and crushed beetle shells. She marked gravity fluctuations by throwing a pebble and counting the drop delay. At sunset, she dug a shallow trench under a stone outcrop. Not to hide. To rest. She ate a protein square. Drank 2 ounces. Stretched her legs. Then lay down. The camera drone watching her didn't move. It hovered silently, zooming on her still body as the wind howled. Her vitals showed calm. Resting heart rate, 42 BPM. A commentator on the Coalition's main broadcast blinked. "She's sleeping. No walls, no weapons, no heat shield," muttered the co-host. "Is she even trying?" The analyst reviewed her data again. Her elevation shift during the thermal surge saved her. Her placement predicts a 70% reduction in carnivore movement. The audience began murmuring. On day 2, Karlax killed a glider worm with his bare hands. Tore off a limb and ate it raw. Nora boiled sap and filled 3 bladders with electrolyte fluid. On day 2, a contestant from the Riltha Union was caught in a gravity twist and exploded mid-sprint. Nora ducked under a storm pocket and rode the wind to cover using a mylar sheet as a sail. By noon, 10 more were dead. Nora remained unremarkable to most of the viewers, until one young analyst cut the feeds side by side. Karlax's footage was brutal, loud, dramatic. Nora's? Every decision was surgical. Minimal energy. Maximum efficiency. No injury. No delay. Every move chosen for survival. It started trending. By nightfall, Nora found the ridge's edge. She spotted a younger alien competitor, the Avaki female from Sector 12, pinned beneath a fallen vine beast. Still breathing, but panicked. Nora slid down, silent as wind. The creature stirred. She slid her blade from her boot and stabbed under the soft carapace behind its eye cluster. One clean thrust. It writhed. Stopped. She freed the girl, handed her a stim patch, and walked away without a word. The girl sat there dazed. "Thank you," she whispered. Nora didn't turn around. She just kept walking. High above, in the Coalition control deck, Warmind Karlax viewed the tactical map. His expression twisted. "Why is she still on the board?" No one answered. He slammed a fist on the console. "She doesn't even fight." The analyst adjusted his screen. "Sir, she hasn't needed to." The sun on Gorash Tel wasn't steady. It flickered like a dying bulb. Shadows changed direction without warning. The air tasted metallic. Gravity pulled in surges. On the morning of day 3, the ground moved sideways. Not an earthquake, just a shift. Like the planet had rolled in its sleep and forgotten to tell anyone. 3 alien competitors were swallowed into a liquefied slope of ash and silicate. One tried to climb out, screaming. A burst of gas ignited beneath him. He didn't scream long. Nora Vance crouched beneath a rock shelf 2 ridgelines over, sipping water through a cloth filter. She watched the flames rise unmoved. "New burn zone," she muttered into her recorder. "Marking grid Delta 17 unstable." She didn't mourn the dead. Not out of cruelty, but clarity. They hadn't adapted. They treated the planet like an opponent. Gorash Tel didn't fight back. It existed. You learned its rhythms or it erased you. Nora wiped dust from her face and kept moving. Elsewhere, Karlax marched through a thorn-choked valley, dragging the carcass of a 6-legged predator behind him. The thing's jaws had snapped around his forearm hours ago. His armor plating cracked under the pressure, but he'd shattered its skull with a rock and a roar. Now he used it as a trophy. He wanted the cameras on him. Wanted them to see him bleed and grin through it. But they weren't watching. "Zoom in," he snarled at the nearest drone. "Show them who dominates." It hovered unmoved. He turned his head. "What's the feed leader?" "It better be me." The drone blinked twice, pulled up the trending feed. Karlax froze. It wasn't him. It was her. Nora was using her boots as a pressure gauge. She stepped forward, paused, and waited. When the heel sank half an inch slower than the toe, she dropped to one knee. "Slick underlayer. Gas pocket. We cut left." She turned. Behind her, the young Avati girl, Ilya, maybe 17, followed with uneven steps. Nora didn't ask why she was still tagging along. Didn't object either. It wasn't about loyalty. It was logic. 2 eyes were good. 4 were better. Why didn't you leave me? Ilya asked, panting. Wasted effort to let you die, Nora said without looking back. But I was slowing you down. You're not now. They pressed forward, weaving through the steaming canyons of the glasslands. Vapor hissed through fissures like the planet was breathing. Ilya swallowed. I saw the footage. The others, they called you a ghost. Said you're lucky? Luck doesn't cut vines before they tighten, Nora said. Ilya paused. You're different from them. Nora glanced at her. That's because we're not here for the same reason. Meanwhile, Karlax reached the cliff where Nora had camped the night before. The fire pit was still warm. Stones had been rearranged into a reflective triangle, visible only from overhead. A signal. Subtle. Efficient. Marking territory, he growled. He studied the tracks. Human boot prints. Light stride. No signs of struggle. No panic. He crushed a beetle beneath his heel. She's mocking me. By afternoon, the sky turned green. It meant gravity would shift within minutes. Ilya stumbled. It's happening again. Nora unhooked a coil of polyrope from her belt and jabbed an anchor spike into the basalt. Brace low. Don't move. Don't breathe fast. The pressure increased. Bones ached. Nora gritted her teeth and stared at her pulse monitor. It ticked irregularly. Then it dropped. For 5 seconds, gravity ceased. They floated, anchored only by the line. Then the drop hit, hard. Ilya slammed to the ground, grunting. Nora absorbed the fall like a practiced habit. She pulled Ilya to her feet. You okay? The girl nodded, stunned. Nora cut the rope. We keep moving. Across the canyon, Karlax wasn't so lucky. His footing gave out mid-jump. He fell 10 meters, bounced off a spiked ledge, and rolled into a mud trench laced with needleworms. One bit into his thigh. He roared and tore it free, crushing its skull. Pain shot through him like electricity. His comm link crackled. No response. Get me med-drone support, he snapped. A beep. Support not authorized. He punched the dirt. She doesn't deserve to be ahead of me. But somewhere in the back of his mind, the fear settled in. She wasn't ahead by accident. That night, Nora boiled a small root bulb and chewed it slowly, eyes on the flickering shadows. She'd smeared her scent with dust. Lined her camp with reflective shards to blind nocturnal eyes. Ilya curled up nearby, silent but awake. Why did your people only send one? She asked suddenly. Everyone else brought teams. Packs. We had an honor guard. Nora looked up at the stars, almost amused. Because we didn't come to show off. Ilya frowned. Then why? To see if we could win without trying. Ilya blinked. That's arrogant. No, Nora said. It's human. Elsewhere, Karlax staggered through a fungal field, his thigh bleeding, breath ragged. Every step was slower now. His shoulders sagged. His vision blurred. He didn't feel like a warmind anymore. He felt chased. Not by a predator. By doubt. The silence ate at him. The lack of fanfare. The reality that somewhere, out in the jungle, a human woman was moving faster, thinking smarter, and staying alive with less. Not just surviving. Thriving. Coalition Command watched from orbit. Dozens of feeds. Vital signs. Environmental logs. Nora's was the only one with a perfect trajectory. No wasted movement, no injuries, no comm errors. She was a black dot moving steadily through the world's worst terrain, like it belonged to her. One general turned to his analyst. She's rewriting our benchmarks. She's not fighting the planet, the analyst whispered. She's listening to it. Ilya awoke sometime after midnight to Nora humming softly as she replaced a bandage on her ankle. The wind had shifted. The jungle below echoed with new sounds. You're not afraid of this place, are you? Ilya asked. Nora shook her head. We grew up on a planet just like it, she said. It just wore different colors. Gorashtel shifted again. The terrain cracked underfoot, steam rising from glowing fractures. Ash swirled through the sky like dark snow. The final trial had begun, the core zone, a molten valley wrapped in jagged peaks and geysering lava vents. The Coalition broadcast warned that conditions exceeded survivability for most known species. Karlax gritted his teeth and pressed forward. His leg was wrapped in a torn ration pack, bleeding through the seal. His breath came in short gasps. His armor clanked, dented, crusted with black resin from last night's ambush. He hadn't slept. His last stimulant dose had worn off hours ago. But he was moving. Because she was still alive. The human. He hadn't seen her in days. Only the occasional drone feed, always brief, her silhouette slipping past the edge of view. A flicker of heat signature vanishing into terrain too unstable for most to cross. She never spoke to the cameras. She didn't perform. And yet, she was always ahead. He hated it. Nora crouched beside a bubbling fissure, steam rising around her like a veil. Her skin was coated in soot, her boots patched with melted synth fiber and bark. She'd lost her knife 2 days ago. Didn't matter. She hadn't needed it. She stared across the valley. One path remained. Straight through the geyser fields, erratic, boiling eruptions every 5 to 7 minutes, driven by the volatile gas below. Behind her, Ilya breathed shallowly, holding her ribs. Cracked in the last gravity dip. She could barely walk. I can make it, Ilya whispered. Nora didn't move. No, she said. You can't. I can. You stay here. Nora reached into her pack and slid out the last stem tab, placing it beside Ilya's canteen. She didn't explain. Didn't promise to return. She stood and walked into the steam. The geysers screamed. Pillars of white-hot pressure burst into the sky, turning to glass midair. The ground trembled. Rocks shifted beneath her feet. But Nora moved with rhythm, low, balanced, steady. She'd mapped it during the wait. Timed the pulses. Measured the intervals by eye. She stepped between the eruptions like dancing with a machine set to kill. And then movement. Across the field, a massive figure limped into view. Karlax. His body was shaking. His face streaked with ash and dried blood. He saw her and growled, stumbling forward like a beast wounded too many times to care. Nora stopped. He did too. 30 meters of boiling earth between them. He raised a fist. You think this makes you better? He rasped. No, she said. You think surviving this once means anything? She looked at him, calmly. We didn't survive this once. We evolved in it. Karlax snarled and stepped forward, too fast. A geyser detonated beneath him. He screamed as steam enveloped him, throwing him backwards. He hit hard. Rolled. Smoke curled from his left arm, the plating fused to his skin. He lay still, twitching. Nora waited for another eruption, then crossed the field. She knelt beside him. His breath was ragged. His eyes wide. You never fought me, he muttered. I didn't have to. You didn't win. I didn't lose. He coughed. Blood and soot mixed. Why did they send only you? Nora opened her canteen, poured a few drops on a cloth, and placed it against his burned cheek. Because one was enough. The final checkpoint was a raised stone ledge overlooking the burning valley. No gates. No applause. Just a beacon. Nora reached it as the sun dipped below the peaks. Her shadow stretched long behind her, cast in blood-orange firelight. The Coalition drone scanned her vitals. Heart rate, low. Body temp, stable. Injuries, superficial. Final status, active. Standing. Alert. Final ranking, sole survivor. A moment later, a soft ping echoed across the galaxy. Every feed lit up. Death World trials complete. Terran entry, Sergeant Major Nora Vance. Status finished. Unassisted. uninjured. The silence across the control rooms of 12 species was absolute. Then the coalition host whispered. She didn't win with strength. She won with understanding. Back on the ridge, rescue drones arrived for the fallen. Karlax was alive. Barely. His eyes fluttered open as a med clamp lifted him from the ash. He turned his head. Nora was gone. At the Coalition Hall, 2 days later, representatives filed into the review chamber. Press, sponsors, military leaders. Nora stood alone at the center. No medals on her chest. Just the same dusty uniform. A faint scar above her eyebrow, barely visible. A Verkai official stepped forward. What did you learn, human? Nora met his gaze. That you all misunderstood what a death world is. The chamber held its breath. It's not a place that kills. It's a place that doesn't care if you die. There's no malice. No mercy. Just nature. She paused. And Earth was one of those, too. Outside the chamber, a child from the Crixie delegation tugged her mother's sleeve, pointing to Nora. Is that the monster? Her mother hushed her. No, sweetheart. She hesitated. That's the human. Final line. They bragged about surviving death worlds. Humans were forged in one.